This episode of Creative Process is brought to you by Logo Serial. Logo Serial is a community-driven project that provides designers with bite-sized tasks to help them develop their skills. Each brief aims to challenge designers to try new styles and explore new areas of design through extension tasks. Each brief was written to simulate and reflect real-life businesses, and therefore, Logo Serial helps you build case studies for your portfolio to attract real clients. Real clients, people, real clients. Logo Serial also has a community of established creatives who offer their feedback and knowledge to help push your work even further. Join over 300 other designers and get started with Logo Serial today by using the link in the description. Again, join over 300 other designers and get started with Logo Serial today by using the link in the description. All right, let's get back to the podcast. Welcome back to The Creative Process with myself, Jared Klein. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 3. I changed kind of layouts on my computer here, so with my monitor, so I am like directly underneath my webcam. So if you see me looking here, I'm actually looking at myself. I don't know, I gotta get used to looking at the camera, but we'll figure it out. But today, as you can tell by the title, tell by the thumbnail if you're watching on YouTube, this is going to be about keeping function for designs in mind while you are kind of producing them. It's a topic that, again, I took notes on my phone for, so my phone's right here. You'll see me looking down at it occasionally when I have to kind of correct myself and get back on track. I don't really want to stem off. I want this one to be a pretty short one here today. So, you'll see me kind of glancing down on here. But basically, I had to work through this topic and actually think through this topic a lot when I first started my job at the Timber Rattlers. And it kind of, it was something I had to get really used to. And but ultimately kind of made me push through a barrier to where everything doesn't have to look almost exact, those type of things. But yeah, so basically, what are we talking about today? I kind of already said it. We're talking about keeping function of designs in mind while you create them. Sometimes my first note on my list is aesthetic sacrifice. Sometimes you have to bite the bullet when you are designing something to figure out, I may have to make a sacrifice on something that I like that makes it look better, but does it serve the purpose for what the design is going to be used for? For example, I guess not really for example yet. I'll kind of get into personal experience in a bit here. Another note is basically just figuring out what the goal of the graphic or the goal of the, print collateral or the goal of, X, Y, or Z that you're producing. What is the goal of that piece of material that you are creating? Is it to sell? Is it to market? Is it to entice? Is it to get information out? Is it to, there's plenty of different reasons why we make certain things and everything like that, and plenty of different reasons, plenty of different goals for those various pieces of collateral or creative pieces. So yeah, that's one thing that you have to think about, as well as including what the target market or the target audience for that piece as well. You have to realize who's going to be seeing this. Why are they going to be seeing it? What would they be thinking when they see it? So that's a couple other things that you have to consider as well. So just simply touching on my personal experience, I feel like that kind of starting out the podcast like that, telling the people listening, as always, thank you for listening. Episode 3 of season 3, thank God. But I wanted to give, some bullet points right off the bat to kind of consider when thinking about these things, because yes, the majority of the people listening to this probably design sports edits or design, very aesthetically pleasing pieces of graphic design. And I know that because I see that all over my Twitter feed, and it is always fantastic, and it makes me want to keep looking at it. But sometimes, when you get into a full-time job, depending on what you're doing. Obviously, everybody's job is completely different, or when you get into freelance clients or however you're dealing with that. Sometimes you have to make sacrifices on aesthetic look. You have to make sacrifices on what looks good and have to realize what will benefit the project in, to really capitalize on its intended purpose. So, layout and composition are things that you really have to hone in on, but the things that really you have to focus on different ways of constructing a layout and considering different ways of approaching hierarchy. You have to think of what you want people to see first, what you want, what's the intended purpose and everything. For instance, let's say I was working on a project for the Timber Rattlers that was about, let's just use this recent one for example. I'll say, this hasn't been released yet. We're actually having this event Thursday. Well, actually, it has been released, so we can kind of go over it. So I actually put the graphic up. I think about right now. We'll put the graphic up right now so you guys can see what I will be talking about. I actually pull it up here over on my computer here. But basically, I had to create a promotional image for our new beer that we're bringing out, that we're kind of working in collaboration with Badger State Brewing, and it's a beer for our alternate identity, called the Udder Tuggers. Within minor league baseball, a lot of teams do this. They create alternate identities. One consistent thing through the minor leagues is Copa. There's Copa identities, so ours is the Cascabeles. It's basically just paying homage to Hispanic heritage, and using Hispanic Heritage Month as a time when you run that promotion. So that's one way. But we have the Udder Tuggers and the Wisconsin Brats. So we have the Wisconsin Udder Tuggers and the Wisconsin Brats. They're two different identities. We run Udder Tuggers over Dairy Month, and we run the Wisconsin Brats. Not really for Brattoberfest, because obviously we don't have a season in October, but to kind of pay homage to the German heritage in Wisconsin. So, so this one, for example, the Udder Tuggers Cream Ale, I had to figure out a way to figure out what the audience is wanting to see first. So upon first glance at this graphic, you see Udder Tuggers Cream Ale in the big bold letters. Udder Tuggers a little bit stylized with the cow pattern, and then you see the cans on the left side. So I wanted people to see, the name of the beer, because even if they see the can first, they're going to see, they're going to read what's on the can and figure out what it is, and then they're going to get the information on the left or on the right. So possibly there's some reiteration there that isn't needed, but I wanted it because just to make sure they get the message of what it is. So I had to figure out, first off, what is this graphic for? It was a promotional graphic to help push this new thing that we're coming out with and that we're proud of. So I made this graphic for those intentions. I wanted to figure out what was most important. So number one, we already talked about the name of the beer. And then number two, probably the when and the where, which I highlighted using the yellow. And then, excuse me, just getting a drink. Which I highlighted using yellow behind blue text, and then then it just kind of falls from there. But having all those things in consideration, realizing what the graphic is for, who's going to be seeing this, where is it going to be posted, how readable is it going to be. Basically, this graphic went out on all digital, so I didn't have to worry about readability that much. A lot of people are going to be seeing this on their phones, on their computers, places where if it is hard to read for them, they can easily zoom in and stuff like that, or enlarge the image very easily. So readability wasn't the biggest thing. Hierarchy in this one was probably the biggest thing. I had my assets. I knew what I was going to work with, but figuring out what went where, the layout was kind of wasn't the hardest thing. I knew I wanted the big cans, there, prominent, boom, and then I knew I had a lot of information to add, so a lot of room for information on the right side there, the graphic, which was, pretty easy to kind of think about and kind of construct. But just, something that I had to go through and some thinking that I had to go through. Another thing is for every month we have player posters. So there's no graphic to actually throw up here, but it's something very similar. I've designed them so far for the last 2 months. The first one was for a guy named Sal Fralick, who actually is the number one prospect in the Brewers organization. He got called up to Biloxi, so he's in Double-A now. We're High A, and then our last one, which was last homestand, was for Antoine Kelly, who is a top pitching prospect for the Brewers. He's on the Timber Rattlers right now. But basically, those are pretty straightforward. They're player posters. One, it's print, so I have to make sure everything's formatted a certain way. But there I had to, one, make sure the player was visible. So that's the hierarchy, basically structuring it very similar to how a sports edit is. But I'll be making everything for print. So CMYK, processing it all in CMYK, and making sure sending that out. So that's something we have to do. But different types of thing. Like it's a giveaway. That player poster is a giveaway. It's first 1,000 fans. So it's something that's kind of, just given away, and they use it as like the players can come up to the player and they can autograph it. So leaving a spot, or at least some open spot, to maybe hint towards a place to use it for autograph. That's something I have to consider for those. But kind of pulling back into really what this episode is about. Again, I'm just going to reiterate, like, not everything has to look and feel and feel perfect. You really have to realize what the intent is of the graphics, or of the thing that you're creating. Sometimes you're going to hate it. Like the first week and a half of what I was creating, I didn't really like anything that I was creating. Well, one, it was kind of a weird period. I was kind of feeling out the whole process and working with everyone. But producing that work, I haven't come into a contact with, hey, sometimes this has to not look as well as you intended, but it has to do what it's supposed to do. So sometimes you have to make those sacrifices and everything, and sometimes you have to kind of keep your chin up and, not get bent on, oh, this doesn't look as well as I thought it was going to be. Oh, this doesn't, this hasn't really came out to what I'm, like, to my standard. But you have to figure out that if this graphic is doing its job, like this graphic right now, stats on Twitter, for our Twitter, it's got 26 favorites, 26 likes, 12 retweets, and I can't really see interactions yet because I'm not signed into our team Twitter, but my guess is that it's going to be pushing a lot. And Utter Tuggers is a very well-known thing with our fans and with, honestly, the minor league community. So I wasn't too worried on, people recognizing it and everything. So, yeah. But yeah, so just to kind of wrap up, when it comes to graphics, like 100%, go balls to the wall, make sure you make something that you think looks good. But then when there's changes that has to happen, don't get like bent over it, and don't get upset if, these changes aren't really necessarily what you want to do. It's just making sure that the graphic does its intended purpose. Another time is, or another place where this may be applicable is in packaging. Honestly, this could be applicable everywhere else or anywhere else, because maybe you have to place logos in a certain place, use different guidelines and everything like that. But another place where this is applicable is packaging. Making sure, like, yes, you want to make it look good, but if names of things, if logos of things, if pictures of things or photos of things have to be on the box, then you have to make adjustments. And if it's not necessarily what you want it to do, then you kind of got to bite the bullet and make the most with what you kind of, with what you got. And the main thing, I guess not really the main thing, but one thing that has to be taken into consideration is also time constraints, especially like with the work that I've done already. a lot of it is like rushed. A lot of it is like 2-3 day turnaround, plus you're working on a bunch of other things. So there's a lot of sacrifice that has to happen. You have to figure out, whip something together, get some feedback, and then kind of push it out ASAP type of scenario. So sometimes, the allotted time that's given determines how many changes or how perfect in your mind it can be. And sometimes that's just what it is. And for me, like the stuff, like you just have cognitive, like that's not really what I wanted to say, but you take a mental note and you say, okay, this was put out. It's not going in my portfolio. It's not something that I'm going to use to show off my skills, but it's something that I produced and we have to push out, and it got the job done basically. So basically, I told you it was going to be a short one. We're rolling in on about 15 minutes here of recording. So I hope you guys enjoyed Season 3, Episode 3. This is something I wanted to talk about. I knew it was going to be a really short one, but it's something I wanted to talk about because it was a topic that I really had to experience right away when I started, and I kind of was very stubborn at first, and I was like, why does things have to be like this? But then I mustered up a little bit and had some more understanding, opened my mind a little bit to the process, and honestly made my whole process of designing better, especially when consideration for what medium it's going to be presented in. So I hope you took a little bit away from this if you are in that situation, or if you are potentially going to be put into that situation, just so you can kind of think of things a different way, realize the utilization of the graphic or the material or whatever you're producing before. Well, obviously you want it to look good, but realize the utilization, consider the utilization as you're designing it. That's the main thing. That's really the main thing. So, but anyways, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, week, month, whenever you are listening to this or watching this. And as always, make sure you tell someone that you love them. All right. Peace. We'll see you in episode 4. Take it easy.